Welcome and thank you for joining us today for a Land Services SA webinar on SCAP best practices. This is a pre-recorded session with a live Q&A session at the end of this presentation. We ask you to kindly hold all of your questions until the allocated time, where one of our subject matter experts will be able to assist. Land Services SA is committed to providing an excellent customer experience. One way we continue to deliver value to the industry is through our industry education program, where we produce a range of helpful educational materials. We hold regular webinars and host industry events. Our industry education program addresses key topics or frequently asked questions to ensure you remain up to date with contemporary practices. We want to help set you up for success and believe helping with industry education will help reduce the volume of requisitions, meaning a quicker and more seamless experience for your clients. Land Services SA's subject matter experts assist in delivering our industry education program, utilising their years of experience and respected place in the industry. This webinar was prepared by our Senior Plan Examiner, Bill Sheekey, and Division Officer, Martine Aldan. Bill has had over 45 years experience with the LTO, and Martine has come from an architectural background and is currently our lease plan subject matter expert. In this webinar, we will be covering the following. When do you need to apply for SCAP? What stage do you apply for SCAP? How it moves through Planning SA and then ultimately to LSSA. Factors that require fresh SCAP. What happens when applying? The difference between applying for fresh SCAP and for an extension, and our process when requests are received for fresh SCAP or extension. Conveyancers and surveyors should communicate with each other as regards to any changes made. This webinar is aimed at survey industry. However, conveyancers should get some useful tips from this to ensure that they have prepared the right dealings. The State Commission Assessment Panel, better known as SCAP, is responsible for the functions, powers and duties of the State Planning Commission, or SPC. They assess and determine development applications where the State Planning Commission is the relevant authority and act as the consenting authority for non-complying applications approved by a council regional assessment panel. They also assess and report on Crown developments and public infrastructure applications to the Minister for Planning. Our interest with them is that they act as the lodgement authority for all land division applications. This slide presents a list of the relevant external agencies and authorities that must review SCAP applications such as SA Water, SA Power Network, Gas, NBN, Council, Department of Infrastructure and Transport. There are a variety of different types of plans that require SCAP consents, such as community plans, strata plans, Torrens divisions, boundary realignments. Division plans can be used to change the legal boundary for land parcels. This can create new titles, subdivide property for redevelopment, or move a boundary between existing parcels. This flowchart shows the process for SCAP applications from the Surveyor's Plan Lodgement, through State Planning Commission, through Plan Examination and Property Examination with Land Services SA. During Plan Examination, the examiner will compare the lodged plans against the SCAP approved plan. There are several scenarios where a fresh SCAP is required, where there are significant differences between the two plans, where there is an error on the plan, and where easements have been omitted or are in the wrong form or the wrong status, etc. These are some excerpts from the Plan Presentation Guidelines, and surveyors should refer to this checklist to ascertain if and when a fresh SCAP is required. In the PPG, the SCAP decision table outlines what type of consents are required for Land Services SA to release the SCAP back to the State Planning Commission for reissue when requested. This table describes the different scenarios where we need to supply a letter of consent on letterheads from either the surveyor or the lodging party, and the letters require a statement that the applicants have consented to the changes. The surveyors and the conveyancers and solicitors, the lodging parties, should all be communicating with each other as early in the process to better align the amended plans with any dealings. This flowchart displays the process of SCAP reissue. If fresh SCAP is requested, the surveyor should be supplying LSSA a request on their letterhead for us to release the SCAP back to SPC. The status of the plan from the decision table in the PPG highlights whether the surveyor also needs a statement in their letter regarding the applicant's consent, or whether the conveyancer should be involved as well, because dealings have already been lodged. The difference between a reissue of a SCAP certificate or an extension is that consents are not required for an extension. When applying for an extension through SPC, ensure that you are clear that it is an extension that is being requested. The correct terminology helps us to assess the request and release without the need to investigate, as consents are not required with extensions. Whilst for a plan that has been requisitioned for fresh SCAP, we need to assess the stage of the plan and what criteria it falls into, and whether consents are required before the SCAP is released back to SPC for reissue. In the PPG, the SCAP decision table outlines what type of consents are required for Land Services SA to release the SCAP to SPC when requested. As you can see, the different scenarios where we need to supply a letter of consent on letterheads from either the surveyor or the lodging party, and the letters require a statement that the applicants have consented to the changes. The key points to remember are: talk to the client and the conveyancer. Check current CTs for existing easements and make sure all required easements have been catered for. Check the subject title details on amendment plans do reflect the CT status. All CTs affected are shown in the other titles affected, especially if extinguishing easements. The PPG sets out requirements for fresh SCAP. A letter is always required from the surveyor unless dispensation has been provided from the plan examiner. Please check the PPG to ensure you have covered everything. And please contact the Client Advice Officer at Land Services SA if you require any further information. Land Services SA's website has a range of educational and support materials to assist you in your day-to-day work. Our Industry Education Hub is a good place to start. This can be found by clicking Industry Education Hub on the homepage of LSSA's website. A copy of today's webinar will be published on the Industry Education Hub, together with recording of previously held webinars. That concludes our recorded webinar section. Thank you for listening. Please remain online for the live Q&A session with our subject matter experts.